Hey, I'm Andrew Malcolm, and today we're going to go over the 80-20 rule for property investing. Now, recently I've been reading a lot of Richard Coach. He was recently featured on the Tim Ferriss podcast, and this guy has got some pretty awesome books, and he brings a lot of authority with some of the messages. The most popular book he's written is the 80-20 principle. Now, you guys have probably heard about the Pareto principle, or the fact that 20% of your effort will often lead to 80% of your results. Well, this book has sold like 1 million copies, and you would think there's not that much to say about it, but there's actually quite a bit to say about it. So how does this rule apply to property investing, and why is it important? Now, Richard, he actually is somewhat famous for a bunch of investing he's done. His most famous investment was he put $1.5 million into the early stages of the company Betfair, and I'm pretty sure he got like $100 million out of that investment. So the guy is worth a lot of money. And so when people that are rich talk about how to get rich, I figure that's a good thing to listen to those rules. Don't always have to listen, but when they come with as much weight and much simplicity as these messages, I think it's really helpful. There's two things that Richard has taught me that's brought to front of my mind, and I've been reading 3 or 4 of his books in the last couple of weeks, is the STAR principle and the 80-20 rule. So like most of you, I got a full-time job, I go to the gym, I've got things I like to do, and actually at the moment I'm looking after my daughter. She's in bed, my wife also in bed with our son. So time is really important to me. I don't have as much time as I'd like to dedicate to property investing. So the time that I do spend on property investing has to be really important, has to be high impact. I can't just spend hours and hours on Trade Me and real estate. So the key takeaway, the earliest lesson I took away from the 80-20 principle was relatively simple, and it's all diagrammed here. 20% of your inputs is going to get 80% of your results. 80% of the consequences are going to come from 20% of the causes. 80% of your results are going to come from 20% of your effort. So what does that even mean? That's such a tough, it's an easy concept to grasp, but now, how do you even break that down? Where do you go with that message? You got to take it to the next level. You got to say, okay, with property investing, why is it important to have that 80-20 frame of mind? Well, what I like to do is I like to bring the Boston Consulting Group's model for how they consult the CEOs that they work with into property investing. So the BCG matrix was made famous in the 60s, and you might have heard of the cash cow, the star business, the dog business, and the question marks. What you want to be doing with your property investing is, as much as you possibly can, focusing on owning, buying, or replacing the properties you own and making them star properties. Now, what does that mean? Now, star property would be that it's got high capital gains growth, high potential for future development, high potential for increasing the yield, and high existing yield. Like basically the perfect property to own. It's bringing you a lot of cash flow. Holding onto the property with no relatively little effort is bringing you a lot of annual growth. Now, you got to assess your own portfolio if you already own properties. Do you own properties that are cash cows? Potentially they're in low growth areas, but they're bringing you a lot of income, and they might be worth considering, maybe if you can, especially if you've got them separated as securities, replacing them with star properties. The more important thing is if you own a property that's a dog property. So if it's in a low capital growth area, it's got low yield relative to what you could be getting, it's probably worth, and this is what Boston Consulting Group suggests to the CEOs they work with, getting rid of that property and replacing it with a property that has the potential, so it might be a question mark property, to become a cash cow or become a star property. So you don't want to be putting yourself in a position where your portfolio is built up with dog properties that have got low growth, low yield. If you can dedicate a lot of the time that you have for property investing, even if it's only a little amount, and just keep this in your front of mind. I want to have star properties in my portfolio. A couple of weeks ago, before I read these books, I was looking at hundreds and hundreds of listings. My buying criteria was not as strict as maybe it could be. I wasn't even listening to my own advice to have strict buying criteria. Now I've reframed my property investing, and I know that I'm only looking for star properties, high growth areas, high yield investments, high return on cash. And I know that to do that in places where I will invest, like in Auckland, I'm looking for subdivision properties that can be either consented or built upon, where I can see hidden value, but maybe the owners of the property, or they don't see, or they fail to do their calculations on properly. And what you're probably going to see a lot of in 2021 is properties that have been valued for $1 million on homes or on their CVs, $1 million, selling for $2-3 million, because the potential with those properties is so massive because of the rezoning. So it pays to know about the zoning rules. If you know about the zoning rules and the potential for development, that's the only thing you really need to know about with property investing, and just look for the star properties in your area. Spoke to somebody who lives in Otago today. She's just going to be looking for development potential properties in Otago, and she knows that most of the people that are mum and dad investors down there, they don't understand what's happening with the rezoning or what's happened. So she's got the advantage. It doesn't matter if she pays the market price, because the actual potential value on that property is much higher. I can summarize these 3 pretty weighty books up for you. Richard Coach has just said, hey, keep 80-20 front of mind. If you don't have that much time, all you got to do is narrow your focus. Place the properties you already own that are not that great with better properties. And when you're looking for properties, have very strict criteria, and make sure you're thinking high yield, high growth, high potential, trying to spot value that other people can't see. When you only got 20 minutes, doesn't mean that's not enough time to look for properties. You set your filters on Trade Me, set your filters on realestate.co.nz. If nothing pops in your criteria, then you've done your dash for that day. If your criteria is very strict, maybe only 1 or 2 properties that's going to pop up in that filter each time, and that's going to simplify and shorten the amount of time you need to spend on that. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you want to talk about the 80-20 principle, you want to find out more about the BCG matrix for property investing, let me know in the comments, or andrew@mhq.co.nz.